Hello everyone! I've decided I want to do chapter recap videos in terms of what I think per chapter and everything I'm noticing and thinking about, because other people are doing them and they look fun to do and I want to do them. I am not immune to peer pressure, but also, god damn it, I just want to talk about One Piece. These videos will be very short form videos and should work as fun little breaks between my long form videos, and I also know everyone is damn hungry for new chapter content, so I hope I feed your thirst. I usually do chapter streams on Twitch and YouTube on my VODs channel, but I think it's super beneficial to write my thoughts down and talk about it more coherently, so let's get started with it. Chapter 1127 is titled Adventure in the Land of Mystery, and it opens with Yamato's current pilgrimage. Not much to say here apart from he's met with Dogstorm and they're both concerned about the kidnapping of Wano's women. Although I've realized more than just women are being kidnapped, but whatever. Getting into the actual story, we see what's probably Elbaf? One has to assume so, but I struggle to say this is Elbaf when we have no idea what's going on. I've learnt to not jump to conclusions reading One Piece, but I want to say it's Elbaf. We have nothing to scale the people, although Nami does call the bees she sees giant bees. But looking at the people in comparison to the bees and in comparison to Nami, these are still huge bees. These possible giants don't look very giant, but I don't know, maybe my depth of field is scuffed. Also, the bees are called stingmores. Very creative name, Oda, I love that one. Moving on, there is a fire at a big tree. I'm getting Ohara flashbacks. This tree is apparently called the World Tree, named Yggdrasil. If you expect me to pronounce that properly, then you are expecting too much from me. A point of interest is the mention of the sun god and the ear god, mainly that these people / giants have to report to the sun god. And this sounds similar to Skypiea and how their gods worked. Since Luffy is apparently similar looking to the sun god Nika, does that mean there's a false sun god on this land? Or maybe even the real sun god? Is this sun god just like Enel and happens to be a dictator with the artificial label of a god? The giant bugs are also giving Skypiea when the crew had to trudge through the forest to find the South Bird, while the giant animals are giving Skypiea too, as the huge snake was seen as a god to the Shandia tribe. Or could the sun god be the big lion they fight in this chapter, as we've had a semi-establishment of lions looking like the sun through the Sunny Go. While the Sunny Go is not connected to this land, I think a lion being the symbol of the sun isn't too far-fetched. Although, since these giants / people said they must report to the sun god, I would find it silly for them to report to a big cat. We at least know the sun god must be physical if these people, giants, say the sound in the forest was that of the ear god collapsing, the ear god being a titanic rabbit. The label of the sun also seems to be on the shield of this giant / person, and we know that's a symbol of Elbaf. Again, we must ask, is this Elbaf or another island inhabited by giants? Is Oda trying to trick us by omitting the fact there may be giant colonies in One Piece's world? I'm not sure, but I am very hesitant to call this Elbaf at this point. We jump to where Nami is, apparently in a castle called Big Steen Castle? Once again, fantastic names, Oda, and this appears to be a big Lego castle. Considering the other houses we saw around were made of Lego, we can safely say Nami's in the same area as these people or giants. We get the full reveal of Nami's fit, insanely slay by the way, and Oda, the newly formed arse man that he is, can't help himself from having a bit of a moment. I read One Piece for the plot. Nami asks if she's going crazy. She screams for Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and even Usopp. And Usopp just happens to appear, but only after we get this Nami panel, which is so adorable to me. She just cannot believe the shit she's seeing. Nami finds Usopp, who's getting chomped by a big cat with a crown. Both Nami and Usopp only remember getting drunk on the giant ship, and Nami brings up the fact that what they were drinking causes hallucinations. This is now the second time this has been brought up, and Usopp quite happily says hallucinations can't hurt him, only for them to hurt him. I just like to say that this panel is one of my favorites ever. It's so cinematic, with Nami sobbing and Usopp getting the shit punched out of him. As Nami and Usopp fall from apparently a very high point, we get this black panel, and suddenly the cat with a crown has turned into a lion as Nami sits with Usopp on the ground. You know, the ground that was very far beneath them. The ground that Nami just looked down at as she said they were very high up. Okay, with perfect timing, Sanji, Zoro, and Luffy jump out to save Nami, beating the lion up in the process, and the lion turns back into a cat. Sanji's eyebrow changes as he uses Infrit Jumbe. I hope you know I will always be noting that, and we see the amazing fits of the monster trio. I'm so genuine when I say Zoro's is my favorite because I absolutely love his goofy, stupid goggles. It's very on brand for him to try and look cool and just come off a bit silly. Luffy says there's many huge creatures around, Zoro says they need to look for the sea and their ship, and Sanji talks about a hive that Luffy and Zoro knocked out, as he says honey is very nutritious. Nami sobs in both anger and fear, still confused at where they are, but the tree seems to make a loud noise as someone says, "Not again." I have no idea who's saying this. I'm assuming Luffy, Zoro, or Sanji is saying it. Either way, big scary noise coming from the big god tree cannot be good. With all that being said, what the hell is happening? Well, my guess is a lot of this is a Nami trip. How much? I do not know, but I am sensing Oda's famous red herrings trying to throw us off his trail, while also giving us enough clues to figure out that this is a trip. Why do I say that? Because this chapter is incredibly inconsistent. Here are all the problems I could find. Nami's sword seems to come and go on her back. Nami's two bands on her arm seem to change sides or disappear completely. Nami's belt buckle changing design. The length of Usopp's helmet horns keeps changing. Luffy's weapon on his back has changed from a sword to an axe or has vanished entirely. Luffy yells he's using gear 4, even though I'm pretty sure Elephant Whip was, I think, gear 3. While I am not great with remembering move names, I'm pretty sure I remember gear 4 being Bound Man and Snake Man, mainly because Snake Man is sexy. Luffy doesn't have his straw hat. There were also tons of skulls and skeletons surrounding Usopp and Nami before the monster trio appeared, all of which seemed to disappear the second the monster trio showed up. There's also the previously mentioned height problem of Nami and Usopp falling from an insanely tall building and just being fine afterwards. But the biggest and weirdest one, to me, is Luffy saying he'll pass on food. I know in the fan translations it doesn't read this way, but I trust Stephen Paul, thank you very much. Now, here's the thing. Usopp got physically hit by the big cat, but this is why I'm smelling a red herring, because Nami didn't get hit by it, nor by anything, and this just happened to be after she brought up hallucinations. At the same time, these giant/people brought up the ear god being a huge rabbit. And Luffy just talked about how they ate a delicious rabbit stew, which means if this is real, Luffy just ate a god? He's done weirder things, but I do so hope this is the case. Now, it's also very possible Oda may have just messed up, but this many mistakes is very strange for him. It's one thing to forget a sword on a back or mess up the length of helmet horns, but to actively change a sword to an axe to there being nothing at all on the same page? I don't think Oda always tends to do that, even in the rush of getting a chapter out. He has a whole team of assistants and editors behind him. Surely someone would have picked this up, especially when there's this many mistakes. So I'm placing my bets on Nami tripping out. Or the drink itself was the red herring. And Nami and co physically are in this place while someone is playing around with them. Could it be a god? Perhaps a trickster of some kind? Maybe Loki? I don't know. All I know is we obviously need to pay very close attention to these next few chapters moving forwards, because I feel like we are being played with. Oda? Although how funny would it be if Oda did just immensely up and he's sweating bullets at everyone's confusion of inconsistencies. I also have to add, it's very possible the forest they are in is an enchanted forest, because Big Mom had an enchanted forest. Big Mom had a fascination with the giants and I think modeled some of her houses from the giants. So it may be possible she made her own enchanted forest on Whole Cake Island to replicate Elbaf's. This is just a theory, I'm not saying this is true. Also, we don't know who woke Nami up from the previous chapter, although Zeus is saying good morning to her, so we can guess it was Zeus. Makes the most sense in this crazy mind bend of a chapter. I don't know where we are, I don't know what's going on, and I don't know what to say. For now, I just think Nami's having a bad trip. That's all I have to say. This was a crazy chapter to have to break down and think about, and my head hurts. But I will be back to talk about the new chapter when it comes out. Please take note, I only read the officials, so these chapter videos will only coincide with the officials. If you'd like to see my chapter reactions in real time, you can join me on Twitch or my YouTube VOD channel. Although for this chapter, I went on the One Piece podcast. Please go check them out to see our whole discussion surrounding chapter 1127. I have nothing else to say. Please let me know if you're interested in me continuing to do these per chapter, because I love talking about One Piece. Thank you, and bye.